Why, hello there, boys and ghouls. Welcome to another Round the Clock Bright segment. My name is Kimberly, and today I am going to be flying solo on this review, but it is for the 1986 film Deadly Friend. It is written and directed by the man himself, Wes Craven. A couple weeks ago, Josh, Thor, and myself sat down and watched and reviewed the 2005 film Red Eye, another film written and directed by Wes Craven. And it was a film that we all agreed that was a very underappreciated and underrated film for its work. Now, because we are sitting here acknowledging some of the work that Wes Craven has done that hasn't really gotten much hype like his other works, such as A Nightmare on Elm Street, Serpents of the Rainbow, just other films that he has done. I mean, honestly, the one that sticks out the most, that's his work that we see a lot of and we get more credit for, is, Fred Krueger himself. But yeah, so in my opinion, this is another film that I felt like it was very underappreciated and it's underrated for its work. I'm going to start by saying I watched this film over 10 years ago. I was about 16, 17 years old. I watched it with my parents. My parents had this film. And when I first watched it, I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed it. It was a very fun film to watch, but I didn't get scared. I mean, I didn't know it was classified as a horror thriller until I got much older and started to be able to identify that more. But I guess it just didn't really scare me, so that's why I didn't think of it as like a horror film. But I definitely really enjoyed it. It had a really nice storyline, and the concept of it definitely intrigued me. But yeah. So before I start, I'm going to give you guys a heads up that there will be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen this, definitely stop the review, go back, watch it, and then come back and watch our review. But yeah, so I'll go ahead and start by saying that the opening scene where we are first introduced to the characters, you have this 17, 18-year-old who's still in high school. He's one of those very smart, technology. He's all about inventing stuff and experimenting with them. So he's pretty much a genius. He built this robot called BB, pretty much from scrap. This robot pretty much can do almost anything and everything like a human. He's still working on BB, trying to update BB with the latest, technology and stuff. His name, which I forgot to mention in the beginning, is Paul, and he is played by Matthew Laborde. I hope I am pronouncing his last name right, but he is well known for his work like Gremlins, and for his work in the other one I can think of is Little House on the Prairie. But for all you horror fans, he was definitely in Gremlins. But yes, so you have Paul, who invented BB. BB is pretty much very smart. You got that opening shot where Paul and his mom are at I believe it's a gas station, picking up a few things, and they left their car unlocked, and this guy, some random guy, truck driver, comes up, and I think he's acting as though he's gonna get ready to steal. We don't really get far with it because BB was in the car, and all of a sudden you see BB's robot hand come out, grab the guy by the throat, and start choking him. Granted, he does not kill this guy, but right off the bat, you can just tell that BB is the word I'm looking for is protective over Paul, and so anybody who intervenes or comes in the way of Paul to hurt him, BB's pretty much his protector, I guess you can say. But yeah, so he's choking this man, almost nearly to death. But as Paul's coming out with his mom, he pretty much lets him go. The guy's gasping for air, and the first thing you hear him say is, like, what the heck is this? But that's your opening shot right there, and then you have them pretty much from there. Paul and his mom are moving into this new neighborhood where you get introduced to his first friend pretty much in town. His name's Tom. He's like a mailman. Almost a mailman. He is a paper boy. Because back in that time, in the 80s, we had paper boys who were riding on bicycles down the streets and throwing papers on people's front porches. So that was Tom, and that's how he met Paul. He's riding his bicycle, and he pretty much nearly trips over BB and falls, almost pretty much eats the cement with his face. But yeah. So you get introduced to his first friend. You also, learn that some things that are going on around town. He's like that friend who pretty much is filling Paul in with everything. But yeah, and then later on you meet another girl who really becomes Paul's friend. But you can later on tell that he grows an interest towards her where he may or may have not wanted to date her. But for the time being, they're friends. Her name is Samantha. They call her Sam. She's played by Christy Swanson. Right off the bat, the first movie I can think of with Christy Swanson is Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Mannequin. Mannequin's a rom-com, but yeah. So you get introduced to her character, who you learn right off the bat has an abusive, alcoholic father, pretty much before you even see her character. While Paul and his mom are moving in, Paul can hear some noises coming, from the inside of the house, like some glass crashing down, some swearing, some, hitting. It's just, you already know right off the bat that the father is not a very pleasant person. So you get introduced to these characters, and another interesting character you get introduced to is the neighbor across the street. This little old lady who is like this, pretty much very on edge, on alert. I look at her like one of those, like, where she just doesn't like the interaction of people, because she has these gates that surrounds her house, and it has like this combination lock on there where she doesn't want people in her yard. She knows how to social distance. but yeah, and she is played by, I'm trying to think of her name, and it does not say on the box. Sorry, it does. Anne Twomey. I hope I'm saying that right. But she played she played in Throw Mama from the Train. That one's a very interesting film. But she did play in that one, and just as her character in that one, she's just this very introvert, very grumpy, mean old lady too, because you have a couple times where they're BB and Paul and Tom and Sam are outside playing with the ball, and then they throw a ball in her yard, and she grabs the ball and was like, "You're not getting this back," and very grumpy, mean old lady. But yeah. We pretty much, I think one of the interesting scenes, because I don't want to give too much away, but one of the very interesting scenes that there's actually a couple I will say that I enjoyed in the horror aspect of it is, I'd have to say that not the first, but it was a later on scene where Sam is laying in her bed, she's sleeping, and you hear, you know, her door being opened, and your first thought, you automatically know it's gonna be her drunken, alcoholic, abusive father walking into her room. And sure enough, he's walking into her room. You know, she's startled awake. You know, he's slurring, tripping, just, you know, coming in to pretty much start some crap with her. But, you know, comes over and stuff, and, you know, I can't remember exactly what he says, but she freaks out, tells him to go away. Of course, he's like, I'm not going away. I'm your father, and you're going to listen to me. And he pretty much grabs her arm. You know, she's like pretty much pulling herself away. She reaches over. She grabs this very thin flower vase and breaks it, and then stabs it like right into his chest. And then all of a sudden, you see blood just shooting out of the vase. And it's really like creepy and weird, but like he's like spraying out this blood on her face and all over her, and he's just doing this very maniac laugh where he's just like, you know, trying to like, you know, holding it and just pretty much like spraying her with his blood while laughing. And to me, that was very creepy and weird. But you know, as he's doing this and stuff, she wakes up. So it was all pretty much a dream, and you know, so she wakes up from it, and she's holding the flower vase in her hand, and she walks over and locks her door. But to me, I thought it was interesting because of the fact on how they did that, where it was like you had this vase protruding out of his chest, and then all of a sudden blood's just squirting everywhere. And it was, to me, kind of interesting how they did that, and creepy at the same time. That was my first favorite out of this movie, in the horror aspect. Second would have to be the death of Anne Toomey's character. Her name in the movie is Elvira. And that would be, well, we haven't gotten to this, but earlier before her death, things go down on Halloween. They're all going out trick-or-treating. It's Paul, Tom, Sam, and BB are all going out trick-or-treating. And Paul told Tom earlier on in the movie that BB was very smart. He was smart enough that he would have been able to break the combination on her security fence that had the little lock combination. And so when they went up to her gate, they wanted to pull a little bit of a fun Halloween prank on Miss Elvira. And Tom was like, well, let's go ahead and have BB try to break the combination. Of course, Paul's like, we're not doing this. And of course, you know, BB's just like, yeah, let's do this. And he goes up and he breaks the combination. And when he does that, Sam walks up the stairs and she rings the doorbell, and all of a sudden you hear these sirens going off all around. You know, she's screaming. She runs right off the porch, trips, falls, hurries up, gets back out. And then you got BB, who's, you know, like I said, he's very protective over Paul. So he's thinking something's happening. And of course, he's coming out and he turns into her driveway, and Paul's like, no, stop. He's trying to stop BB from going because you can hear her coming out saying, who's there? And she's got her big old shotgun in her hand. And then BB's just trying to stroll down the sidewalk towards her front door. And all of a sudden, she uses her shotgun and blows pretty much BB to smithereens, like to pieces of metal and scraps. And you know, Paul's freaking out because BB's like his prized possession, his baby, pretty much. And she just destroyed him in one, maybe it was about a couple of gunshots that she destroys them and pretty much kills BB, because poor BB, he has this little chip in him. It's pretty much his brain. That's like his brain. And she she didn't destroy that. She just destroyed his form. But that was sad. I liked BB. But so you have that, and then later on you have the death of Sam, which was very tragic. And no, she does not get killed by Elvira. But yeah, she pretty much comes home. Her dad's flipping out. He's drunk, and unstable pretty much. She's walking up the stairs trying to get away from her dad, and her dad's following her up the stairs, yelling and cursing, and she ends up falling pretty much down the stairs, lands on her neck, and pretty much breaks her neck from the fall and the impact from her dad pushing her down the stairs. And that was just devastating, because I think it was like shortly before Paul was gonna ask her out, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's so horrible. But yeah, so Paul's devastated on top of BB dying. His next door neighbor, who he pretty much falls in love with, is dead now. So what does Paul do? Paul pretty much takes the chip that is BB's brain, and he goes up to the hospital where Sam is, and where pretty much her dad, being the dick he is, tells them, why don't we just go ahead and pull the plug already, because he just wants his daughter to be gone and done with. And they pull the plug, and pretty much she flatlines right there. So, Paul comes in with Tom after they've already drugged his mother, drugged her with some sleeping powders so he could take her keys and go up to Sam. And Tom's just like not even for this. Like, he thinks this is such a bad idea, which, I mean, granted, this is a really bad idea. But he goes up there, he pretty much plants, he dissects her head so you can see her brain, and he pretty much plants that chip inside of her brain and says that it will find any living life inside of her, and it will pretty much bring her back. So then when he does that, he pretty much carries her out of the hospital, takes her home to his garage, where he builds a nice little, a little bed for her and stuff, so she can awaken in a very comfortable place. But yeah, so he goes back and stuff, and he resurrects her, and of course it works. So she does come back to life. Granted, why it's called Deadly Friend. And so yeah, so going to that death scene that I really thought was a very interesting death scene, and that was Elvira's death scene. But this is after all of that, and Sam is now alive, or as alive as she can be in robot form, and as she goes to Elvira's house, because we all know why she goes and kills Elvira. It's BB's brain, so it's gonna have some of the memories that the robot BB has. So BB already thinks Elvira is this threat to, Paul, and the fact, revenge on killing BB. He goes, and she's, of course, sitting in her living room watching TV. She hears, outside her door, the little click of her combination as BB's trying to get into her front yard, and she goes outside and looks, and everything looks pretty much fine. Goes back in her house, and she sees the basketball that Sam, Tom, and Paul were all playing with, and threw in her yard before she got all grumpy and said, "Oh, you're not getting this back." It comes rolling down the stairs in this creepy and ominous kind of way, and it just rolls into her living room, and she just picks it up, and she's yelling at nothing, because, she already thinks that it's just some meddling kids, coming in and pranking her. So she throws the ball away from her, and then you see Sam come walking in her like dead form, and Elvira's freaking out. And then all of a sudden you see her pick up that basketball, and she chucks this basketball at full force at Elvira's head, to the point that Elvira's head pretty much just explodes off of her body. Like, it literally just blew her head up, and you just see like her neck and her body down as she's like toppling over. And honestly, that was, you know, I mean, obviously nobody felt bad for Elvira, because Elvira was this little mean old lady, and it was like, well, you know what, you killed BB. And but it was an interesting, to me, it was a very interesting death scene. I, you know, get kind of tired with those little regular stabbings and, you know, off-screen gunshots and stuff. So it's like, okay, we need some interesting ways for people to die. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that scene was definitely very interesting. That was definitely a lot of gruesome. But I liked it. I enjoyed that. There was a few other deaths in this movie that were pretty much interesting, but nothing tops off Elvira's death. All right, so pretty much to wrap up this review, we have the ending sequence. Sorry, the ending sequence where after, you know, blood is shed, Paul has realized that bringing Sam back to life was a very bad idea. You pretty much have this scene where Tom, who is now 100% against the whole idea, I mean, he was never for it to begin with, when pretty much Paul was going to the hospital with BB's chip and was about to bring Sam back to life, he wasn't for it. He pretty much distanced himself from Paul for a while, and then towards the end, him and Paul meet up. They get into this pretty much just fight because he's saying that it's a very bad idea. You know, they need to pretty much do something about this. And Paul, at this point, was oblivious to everything. He still thinks that, you know, having Sam and BB back in one is a good idea. So yeah, maybe I was a little off. Maybe he pretty much hasn't realized it yet. But yeah, so him and Tom almost get into a brawl. You have Sam, who jumps out in Paul's defense and trying to protect him, comes after Tom. And at this point, because Tom had called the police to pretty much report Sam's body, the police are outside. They pretty much scare pretty much Sam into hiding. She does kill the bully. I call him the bully because you always have that one bully in school that is picking on the nerd. No, but the very smart kids. And he's always from the beginning of the film been this like douchebag bully who doesn't leave Paul alone, picks on BB when BB was still in his robot form. But yeah, she killed him by picking him up and throwing him at the police car. And, you know, the police are now surrounding her pretty much. And then as you slowly start to see that Sam is slowly coming back, like, I mean, not in BB's brain form, but you start to see that as time kind of went on, she starts to regain some of her senses back, and it starts to become more Sam than it is BB, because you hear her in her, because, you know, throughout the film, whenever you heard her voice, it was more of a robotic voice, but towards the end there, you hear her say Paul, you know, in her human voice, confused and not sure what was going on. And then she flicks back to her robot sense where she's running after Paul because she's scared, you know, she sees all these police around her. And because the police see her running after him, they shoot her, and you hear her scream out one last time before she dies. Paul, in her human voice, he senses that it was actually her, and she dies. And so it cuts out there, and it takes you to this this morgue where Paul pretty much goes to break Sam out of the morgue. I don't know if he was tending to try to do some more of his genius science lab experiment with her and see if he could bring her back with another version of Bibi's brain, because Bibi's brain obviously got destroyed when she got shot by those police officers. But he pulls her out, but he doesn't really get her out fully. She's, laying there, and he's like, we're gonna get you out of here. And then you see her wake up, and she grabs Paul by the throat and starts choking him. And pretty much, you see her face and her skin start to rip off onto this robot. Like this, now it's it almost looks like Bibi, but it's more of a demonic looking, scary, evil looking robot. As her skin just slowly peels away, you just see this evil robot, and then in a human voice you hear the robot say, "Come with me, Paul." And then it cuts out to outside the door. You don't see anything, but you hear Paul screaming, and all of a sudden, crack. So pretty much Bibi/Sam kills Paul, and that's how that movie pretty much ends. Honestly, like I said, it was another film by Wes Craven that I thought was very underappreciated. But with every film that has its good, sometimes they do have its bad. And the only two things that come to mind when I think of some things that they could have done a little bit different, and that would be, one, Sam's makeup. Now, I know where they were trying to go with this when Paul brings her back to life, and she's pretty much alive, but she's not alive because it's not really her functioning brain. It's like pretty much almost like putting a battery in something. It's running, but it's not running with human like force. But so pretty much she's alive, but she's not, because her skin's flush, pale white. She's still got these dark circles under her eyes, around her eyes, like blood circulation has stopped flowing to her eyes. And she's just very lifeless pretty much. And I just didn't like the way they did that whole darkness around her eyes, because to me it felt like they just put some eyeshadow around her eyes. It didn't even look, I don't know, in my opinion, look realistic. Like, it just looked like she was going out trick-or-treating and we're gonna put some eyeshadow around her eyes and pretend I'm a walking dead corpse. But I don't know, I know it was the 80s and they were working with what they got, but I don't know. There's just something about that I was just not a fan of. Second would probably be that ending sequence. Like the concept and where they went with it. The only thing I just didn't like was probably like when her skin is slowly peeling off of the robot. It just didn't look, I don't know, I didn't like the way that it looked. It just looked like a doll, or like, I'm trying to think of another horror film where they're peeling a face off. Friday the 13th, and I believe it was part 2, where you have that scene where Jason is squishing one of the camp counselors' heads, and you just see this face that doesn't even look like a human face getting smushed, and then an eyeball popping out, and it look like a spring, and it's like, what the heck is this garbage? Granted, I really loved the second one along with the first one, but what the heck, man, was that? It might have been the second or third one, but it was like, ugh. But it, to me, that's how that felt. It just felt like it went from a shot of Christy Swanson's body laying there sleeping, all of a sudden to a cut shot of this doll's face being ripped off. Like, some of the special effects didn't rub me the right way in this movie, but overall, the storyline, the concept, the acting was very good. I mean, there is some dry moments with some of the acting, but I don't know. It was a film that I really enjoyed, and something that for a Wes Craven film, he always brings some uniqueness to every film that he does, and I felt like this was a whole new level of uniqueness with it. But yeah, that's my review on the 1986 film Deadly Friend. Again, if you haven't seen it, I definitely highly recommend watching it. Go in watching it not with the logical aspect. I mean, there are some logical aspects to it, but if you're wanting to watch a very fun horror film, I would definitely recommend Deadly Friend. It was definitely an interesting one, but I definitely agree that it was another one of Wes Craven's films that was very underappreciated and underrated. So yeah, but yeah. So if you like what you saw, definitely subscribe to our channel below. We are posting reviews weekly. We are still currently in quarantine where, you know, I am still doing my reviews in my home, and Josh and Thor are doing their reviews in our original setting. And yeah, so I mean, this week I did something a little different with my setting, because the last couple reviews that I did, or my horror DVD collection that I did, it was pretty much blank walls. But here I put up my Child's Play poster. I laid out my Pennywise the Clown t-shirt along with our Deadly Friend DVD case. This isn't my permanent setup. I just now finally got everything unpacked and settled into my new home. So now my next project is working on my little fun horror area where I can actually film reviews in a more of a horror setting. So the permanent location is not going to be my living room. It's going to be in my room, and it's going to have a lot more of my horror collection, and I'm definitely excited about this next project. But yeah. So again, thank you for watching my review, and subscribe for more, and comment and tell me what you think. Have a scary day, boils and ghouls.